This is how I've been feeding 37 chickens and goats. So we have the raccoon-proof rock, and then we have the square bucket with one of our 3D printed chicken feeding adapters. So basically it's kind of does the same thing as like a 90-degree elbow that many people use, like a PVC elbow. Just allows the feed to kind of get around the bottom edge of it. You just keep it a little bit off the bottom, and the chickens can reach through the fence. And if you put it at the right distance, the goats can't really get in there very well. They can try to lick a little bit of it out, but they don't do a very good job. They don't get much. And the chickens can reach their heads through here pretty far, and they can get in and eat it. So it has been working great. Not quite big enough for all the chickens that we have. So today we are going to build a larger chicken feeder for all of our chickens. As always, we're going to be using a lot of scrap and things we have left over from building the chicken coop. A lot of scrap wood we'll pull out of the pile here and pull out of our bins. And we're actually going to take apart the little brooder that I built and use some of the wood from that as well. So let's get started getting our supplies together, and I'll show you what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and we'll get this thing put together. So we have the framing of the little brooder. This had hardware cloth all the way around it, and the chickens obviously were inside of it. The brooder worked great. However, I will say I did have to put a lid on it because the chickens quickly became big enough to jump out of it and get all over the garage. We've got a lot of good 2x4s in here, as well as a piece of 1/4-inch plywood that we can use. So, and these were also some pallet runners that the delivery from Lowe's that had roofing and things on it came on. So of course we'll use all this stuff. So we'll get this taken apart and see if we've got enough supplies to make this feeder. I ran into a little issue with the wood that I had. So the leftover bits and pieces of this T111 or this siding wasn't big enough to get my backside all the way up to the height I wanted. So I had to use this piece of 1/2-inch plywood instead, and it was just a little bit too short also. So I'm going to actually add an extra 2x4 in the back side of this, and this will actually be the hinge point for the lid. So you'll kind of see how this all goes together. So I have been using these staples in my pneumatic stapler to secure all this together, but I'll actually go back with a couple screws and put some deck screws in here and along the back and some of the sides. This is gonna be holding a decent amount of weight once it's full, so I wanna make sure those panels don't work their way loose or anything like that over time. This little bucket here has saved me lots and lots of money. Over the years, if I take doors down during renovations, all kinds of different things. I've collected and accumulated all these different hinges and handles and grasps and things like that. So I save all that stuff. I'll even take stuff off of things before I throw it away or burn things, old stuff. I take the hardware off and save it. So these were actually, I don't even know what these were on, something else. They were some rusty old hinges that I found somewhere, and they've been spray painted. But these will work just fine for what we need here today. Well, everything turned out pretty good. So this is the back side, or the side that the chickens will eat out of. And these are all 3D printed, the little hoods here. So I printed all these from some plans I found on Thingiverse. I've used these in the past for a few other ones that I had, and they've worked really good. So I will put a link to this file on Thingiverse. If you have a 3D printer, you can print them yourself. If not, I will put a link to these almost exact same things on Amazon. They do sell them over on Amazon. I have thought about even producing these myself and selling them, and we'll we'll see how that turns out. So I may have these available on my website to print and sell. If anyone is interested in that, throw a comment down below, and we'll see if there's some interest, and if so, I'll start printing. So there's some things that obviously I would like to improve on. I would normally use deck stain instead of spray paint to actually seal this wood. The spray paint will seal it a little bit. I like to get the ends of the plywood and things like that, but it won't last quite that long. So I may actually get some spray lacquer or some kind of polyurethane or something like that, and throw a coat on the outside of it here to help it to not rot. But it should work out pretty good. So just trying to use what I had on hand, and I happen to have a can and a half of brown spray paint, of which I used every drop of. The roofing too, obviously would have been nice to just have this one solid piece, but I was trying to use up some scraps that I had left over from the coop build, and so this is what we have. It doesn't look quite as nice as it would with one solid piece, but I think it turned out just fine, and it's going to help keep all the water off the edge of this. So we've got a little bit of an overlap here, so you'll see the water should drain off, and I've got a little overlap on the sides as well as on the back. So this should keep water out of here pretty well. We'll have to see how it turns out. But the lid's pretty heavy, but I will still put some latches. I have to do that here as the last thing I have to do before I put it in. Make some kind of way to strap this down, because we do have raccoons that will find their way in, and other chipmunks and stuff. They'll get underneath here. So we'll need a way to secure that. And everything else turned out pretty good. I did have some extra black spray paint. I just sprayed the inside edge of this just in case we get any drip or moisture on any of the edges, and so hopefully that'll help keep the wood healthy for longer. And then on the inside here, the bottom of the floor is sloped that way. So if you saw during the build there, I put a flat 2x4 on this end and a 2x4 standing up on edge on this end. So it's got from 3.5 inches down to 1.5 inches of slope on the bottom. So as we pour the feed in here, it will keep the feed sliding towards the feeders or the openings there. So that's the plan with that. I added these little strips in the corners there just to close any gap that there was. You could also trim this up on the outside, but I think with the sealing it up on the inside with those trim pieces, that should work just fine. So I'm not sure exactly how much feed this will hold. I have a feeling that it's going to hold quite a bit. So I don't have that much feed today. I think I have just a 150-pound bag in a trash can that I normally use. So I'll dump that in here and we'll see what it comes to. But I have a feeling I could fit probably 4 bags in here. So probably 200 pounds of feed will go in here at a time. Well, there it is in place, and it has been working now for a couple weeks. So I did fill it up a couple weeks ago, and it did easily fit 4 and more. So it'll probably fit 250 pounds of food, of chicken feed in here. So it'll hold a lot. One thing that I have noticed is I do wish that I would have slanted the bottom more. Once it gets all the way down to the bottom, it doesn't slide towards the feeders quite as well. So some of the food will get stuck up on the high end of the bottom there. So I could have done a little steeper floor, and I think that would have helped. But for now, I'll just check on it, and we'll come out and just give it a kick or two, and it shakes the feed down to the bottom. That's no problem. So But with that much food in there, it does last a couple weeks. So about 200 pounds of food will last probably about 3 weeks for all these chickens. I have not 100% prevented the goats from eating the chicken food. They still get their little tongues in there and sweep just a little bit out of those feeders. So it has accomplished 50% of its goal. It's a great chicken feeder, but it doesn't prevent the goats from eating the food 100%. So obviously there are lots of adjustments that you can make to this style feeder. This here, obviously, you could make as long as you wanted, as tall as you wanted, as what you could have it hold more feed. You could kind of do whatever you want. You could actually make this so that it sits inside the pasture, and you could put hoods on all the sides, on this side and that side, and then make the floor like a peaked roof instead, so the feed slides to each side. So you could have this handle a lot more chickens that way. Like I said before, we have 39 chickens in here, and this 4 openings is fine for them. They eat at different times throughout the day. They're not all necessarily trying to eat at once. Let me know what you guys think of those little feeder ports, the little chicken feeder ports. I can 3D print those for curved buckets or for flat surfaces like this, either the square buckets or a box that you build yourself. If anyone's interested in those, we'll see if there's enough interest, and I could put those available on our website for sale. Otherwise, there are lots of options on Amazon that you can purchase. So I'll put a link to a couple of those over there, and you get out there and build yourself your own chicken feeder. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to hit thumbs up on today's video. Of course, subscribe if this is your first time here. Love to have you tag along. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.